It was a cool evening, a little after 7 p.m., and a mist of rain was heavy in the air. On this fateful night, two lives would cross paths, and neither would be the same. A 17-year-old high school junior was making his way back to the home he was visiting in a neighborhood that he had been to several times. He was going through some things at home and school, as most teenage males do, and was sent by his mother to stay with his father for a few weeks or so during his out-of-school suspension. Maybe dad can straighten him out or talk some sense into him, his mother thought. Around the same time as the teen returned from walking to a convenience store, a man about 28 years old was sitting in his car, just near the entrance to the Sanford suburban gated community in which both parties resided. Albeit one person's residency was temporary. The late 20-something was a husband, brother, and son, and a concerned citizen who was a highly involved member of his neighborhood watch in this housing development. As the teen crossed the adult's line of vision, it was difficult to see his face, and this caused the adult to surmise he has no business in the neighborhood. Here's where things get dicey. By now, rainfall has replaced the mist that earlier permeated the air. The teen has placed his hood over his head so he can continue walking and talking to his female friend on the phone. A second call is taking place and is being placed by the adult in the car, who is going over in his mind how he feels about his family and his neighborhood safety and security. How over the past several months, people from outside of the neighborhood have come in and burglarized and vandalized homes and property. In this moment of memory, we'll call him Mr. Z. He also recalls the fact that he feels like the police don't do their jobs and should serve and protect better than they have, which has led he and his wife to purchase firearms and learn how to operate them with deadly efficiency when it was needed. The phone call Mr. Z made
911, do you need police, fire, medical?
Just as T-Mart passed him by unknowingly, seeming to be in his own world and minding his own business, was a call placed to a 911 operator. Mr. Z attempting to follow his given protocol as a member of the night watch. However, as the call peaks and plateaus, the mood changes. The tone goes from, hey, can you get a squad car over here and check this out, to something rather alarming, explicitive, to disregarding the advice of the operator to stay in his vehicle and not approach the unidentified individual.
Are you following him?
Yeah.
Okay, we don't need you to do that.
Okay.
A decision was made, one that changed the lives of Mr. Z and T-Mart. Mr. Z exited the vehicle to pursue T-Mart. Mr. Z trailed behind him and most likely called out to T-Mart, hey, you with the hoodie, stop! And most likely, the teen, by this point, still on his phone or listening to music from his noise-reducing headphones, paid him no mind. This infuriated him, and as he heightened his pursuit, it became apparent to T-Mart that he was being followed. The only thing he could think of was to run and get to the house. If I can get to the house and close the door, I will be safe. T-Mart ducked between a row of houses and was speaking to his friend on the phone and told her what was happening. She told him to run. This time he ran. Not more than 300 feet from his father's fiancee home, the frightened young adult was met by an angry and frustrated man. By this time, T-Mart's cell phone had died and Mr. Z's patience had run out long ago, even before that night, and misguided aggression was all that remained. The details of the altercation are foggy, the dialogue lost in time but held in the hearts and minds one of those two souls that clashed that night. Brief moments passed and the commotion drew a crowd, all clamoring to catch a glimpse of what had just happened. Lying there limp and lifeless was a 17-year-old not yet at the point to determine if he was a rebel without a cause or a kid that had a small window of time to shake off his high school hijinks and get focused. And brooding over him was a 28-year-old man, son of a magistrate and a future student of law and criminal justice, who followed his fear and self-perpetuated authority to tell him it was okay to pursue and accost a teen in his neighborhood because he thought he had no right to be there. Mr. Z, who are you to make that determination? Who appointed you the keeper of the gate? T-Mart, your soul is being mourned for, but there are thousands of you each day, beaten, bruised, incarcerated, and murdered for various reasons. Wake up, America. Our children are becoming extinct. And if they are an endangered species, what does that make us?
What is racism to you in 2012?
In 2012, racism is to me whenever you're going somewhere or looked at, or people just judging you the second that they see you. The first thing they see is a black woman, without thinking, is that an intelligent woman? Not seeing my struggles, not knowing my struggles. That's what racism is to me.
racism is in 2012. The first question being, does it exist? And if so, how are we going to turn it around if we can turn it around?
I believe that racism can be defeated. I would classify racism as discrimination against a certain way of life, ethnicity, culture. I do think it can be minimized if we started programs in schools, because that's where all of our generations are going to start. I actually have been trying to start gay-straight alliances, friendly clubs, because I go to a school that is 79% white people. And it's sad to see that, and I think that we can get rid of it if we just work, and that's why I'm always working, always trying to be a good example for gay people, for every type of person.
Absolutely. Be the best person you can be.
My school, it's around 50-50, so everybody just has a chance to talk, interact, and
That's good.
At my school, I guess racism is really minimized.
Okay.
So I guess that's a good part.
That's huge.
Yeah.
Do you feel like the Trayvon Martin situation could have been taking place in your neighborhood?
Yes.
Or has it?
Yes. I'm actually from Brooklyn, so that would be an everyday issue. And now being down here in Charlotte, I still think that it can happen, because actually when I moved here in 2010, I experienced it. That was my first experience actually straight on with racism and with this woman. I had a bag, and she looked down at my bag. It was actually a picture of Michael Jackson. And she started making up a face. She started, and I knew exactly what she was talking about. So I looked at her, and she looked at me, and she was just giving me a bold look, letting me know, so what? And I'm letting you know, yeah, I don't like him. Or I don't like this black man. She just looked at it, she just kept looking at me up and down. So that was my first time experiencing it. And she was like, you could take care of that kind first. That's what she said to the cashier.
I feel that racism is a learned behavior. And the reason being is that when we come into this world, it's like we know we're all in this world together. But how can you know by being, 1, 2, 3-year-old, hey, I don't play with you because you're a different color than I am. I don't like you, or you don't like me because of the color. So I believe it's a learned and taught behavior. And then picking it back, because my son, he's 9, he's just now gotten to the point where I'm black, you're white. He always used to say brown people and yellow people, because he always been into a diverse situation, So now he's learning, okay, he's a different color, but then he knows that we all are, the same, we're a people. So that's how I feel like it's a learned behavior when it comes to, racism, and it does exist.
First thing I want to ask you is, what causes the societal views and errant profiling that led to the untimely death of young Mr. Trayvon Martin and other young men and women like him, in your opinion?
In my opinion, that's a heavy question.
Yeah.
I guess I would say just the stereotype of black men.
Okay.
How we're portrayed in the media. I think some of it's self-perpetuated, but at the same time, most of it is kind of out of fear. It's fear of young black men or young people in general with that fit a certain demographic. Those people are looked at as if this person may rob me, or this person may harm me. So there's a fear that comes in, and that fear is kind of perpetuated by by the media and various outlets. So.
Really offended about the thing you were talking about, the timeline in which it took for Zimmerman to be prosecuted and things like that, and that now that he's even out on bail, still a lot of people are outraged about that. So what do you think about the actual laws though that hide, that make it so he can even go about possibly getting off or being acquitted or possibly anything like that with the actual, I forget the name of the law that's actually, are you familiar with the law that's actually in Florida?
I am somewhat familiar because I lived in Florida a while, but I was surprised that the new law that they implemented, laws can be made and laws can be changed they can add additions to it, but the stand your ground, that means like anybody, it seems like anybody could just up and shoot anybody and then claim self-defense.
Matt, I just want to kind of go over any experiences that you had with regard to racism, and this could be from growing up, you know, in Newcastle to even as an adult. Also, I want to examine race today, what you see today in 2012, and then also your hopes